The name Sean Combs once stood as a symbol of ambition, cultural power, and dominance within the American music industry. For decades, his rise appeared unstoppable. His influence reached far beyond music, shaping fashion, business, and celebrity culture itself. Yet beneath that carefully managed public image, a different narrative has steadily emerged, one defined not by success but by reckoning. In recent months, a series of verified legal filings, sworn testimonies, and public disclosures have forced a re-examination of how power was exercised behind closed doors. What had long been dismissed as rumor or industry myth is now being revisited through documented accounts and on-the-record statements. Together, they form a portrait that is far more complicated and far more troubling than the image once presented to the public. Before continuing, viewers are invited to like this video and subscribe to the channel Hollywood Unseen, where long-form investigative storytelling explores the hidden realities behind fame and influence. Long before the lawsuits and federal scrutiny, Sean Combs carefully cultivated a persona built on resilience and control. He was widely portrayed as a self-made executive who turned tragedy into motivation and adversity into opportunity. His early career was shaped by chaos and ambition, yet it was also marked by moments where responsibility and accountability blurred. Even at the height of his success, there were quiet warning signs that the machinery surrounding him operated on fear as much as loyalty. Former collaborators have since described an environment where personal relationships, professional obligations, and power dynamics became dangerously intertwined. Contracts were not merely business tools, but instruments of leverage. Loyalty was expected, silence was rewarded, and dissent carried consequences. These patterns, once normalized within certain corners of the industry, are now being examined under a far harsher light. As legal pressure intensified, investigators began piecing together how influence may have been used to shield conduct from scrutiny. Financial maneuvers, internal settlements, and carefully structured corporate arrangements raise questions that could no longer be ignored. What emerges is not a single incident, but a long chain of decisions that may have protected an empire while leaving others exposed. And this is only the beginning of what the record now reveals. As scrutiny deepened, attention shifted away from public success and toward the private mechanisms that sustained it. Former employees, artists, and associates began describing a culture where boundaries were unstable and authority went largely unchecked. Their accounts, delivered under oath or through formal complaints, did not emerge all at once. Instead, they formed gradually, revealing consistent patterns rather than isolated disputes. Several testimonies describe an inner circle governed by fear and unpredictability. Professional advancement often depended less on talent than on compliance. Those who questioned decisions or attempted to exit relationships reportedly faced retaliation through stalled careers, financial pressure, or quiet blacklisting. These were not allegations of chaos, but of control. Order was maintained not through transparency, but through intimidation disguised as mentorship. Legal filings further outline how personal relationships allegedly became entangled with business arrangements. Romantic involvement, according to sworn statements, was sometimes inseparable from professional obligation. This blurred line made consent difficult to define and dissent difficult to voice. In such environments, power does not need to be loudly enforced. It becomes implicit, understood, and rarely challenged. As federal investigators widened their scope, attention turned to how resources were allegedly mobilized during moments of crisis. Financial transfers, emergency consultations, and last-minute restructurings were not presented as crimes themselves, but as indicators of anticipation. Prosecutors have argued that these actions reflected awareness of impending legal exposure, though such interpretations remain contested and unresolved in court. What complicates the narrative further is the loyalty that persisted even amid alleged harm. Several individuals acknowledged remaining silent for years, citing cultural pressure, fear of professional ruin, or belief that protecting the institution mattered more than personal consequence. This silence, investigators argue, may have allowed misconduct to continue unchecked, shielded by reputation and reach. The broader industry now faces difficult questions. How many warning signs were ignored because success overshadowed accountability? How many careers were shaped by dynamics that would never survive scrutiny outside closed doors? The reckoning, it seems, is not confined to one figure alone, and still the most consequential revelations were yet to surface. As proceedings moved closer to the present, the consequences of prolonged silence became impossible to separate from the present moment. What once appeared as individual grievances began to resemble a systemic pattern, reinforced over years by access, fear, and influence. Investigators now describe the case not as a sudden collapse, but as the slow exposure of a structure that had been protected by reputation and complexity. Public reaction shifted noticeably as details entered the record. Footage, sworn statements, and corroborating accounts altered how past behavior was reinterpreted. Moments once dismissed as eccentric or abrasive were reconsidered within a broader context of alleged coercion and imbalance. The distance between public image and private conduct narrowed, leaving little room for ambiguity. Legal experts caution that allegations remain allegations until adjudicated. Yet they also note that volume, consistency, and documentation matter. Civil complaints and federal inquiries do not emerge in isolation. They reflect thresholds being crossed, not merely stories being told. For the entertainment industry, this has reignited debate over how power is monitored when financial success becomes synonymous with immunity. The impact has extended beyond courtrooms. Brands have quietly distanced themselves. Partnerships have dissolved without announcement. Longtime collaborators have reassessed past associations, some offering guarded statements, others choosing silence. The recalibration is subtle but unmistakable, signaling an industry attempting to correct itself without fully confronting its past. At the center of it all stands a legacy now under revision. Sean Combs may ultimately be judged by courts, not headlines, but history is already adjusting its lens. Achievement no longer exists in isolation from accountability. Influence no longer guarantees protection from scrutiny. What remains unresolved is how many similar structures still exist unseen and unchallenged. The reckoning surrounding this case may be singular in name, but its implications are far wider. In the aftermath, the industry is left with a choice: to treat this as an exception or as a warning. And for those watching closely, the question is no longer what happened, but what changes next, Trapper.